like to go over a few things that we've been talking about in class with ordering numbers. One of the very first things that we started talking about as a tool to help us with ordering numbers is using a place value chart. When you look at a big list of numbers, such as what you're seeing right there, oftentimes it can be really confusing as far as what numbers are there. It just gets overwhelming for our eyes, and sometimes we might even not be able to identify the place values that the certain digits have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one of those three numbers and I'm going to put it into our place value chart. So our first number is 4,264. Our next number is 4,502. And our last number is 4,205. So now I have them all lined up. They're very easy to look at and compare. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to start in my largest place value, and in this case it's in the thousands. So if I take a look at the thousands place on all three of those numbers, I can see that they all have four groups of 1,000 or 4,000, which tells me they're kind of tied with each other. They all have the same value. So I'm going to go over into my next biggest place value, into the hundreds place, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to look at each digit. I can see here that I have two groups of 100 or 200, five groups of 100 or 500, two groups of 100 or 200. And this is where I can start to see some differences. Okay, I know that five groups of 100 is bigger than two groups of 100 that the other two numbers have. So I know that this is going to be my biggest number out of the three. And I'm going from least to greatest. So I know that 4,502 is going to be my greatest. Okay, so I'm going to put that down here at the bottom. So now I don't really have to worry about that number anymore. I just have to worry about the other two that I haven't figured out where they go yet. So I'm going to, seeing as though they both have two groups of 100, I'm going to actually go over into the tens place and compare those. Because if they each have two groups of 100, they're tied with each other. They both have the same value of 200. So I'm going to pop over into the tens place, and I notice this number has a 0 for 0 groups of 10, and this one has a 6 for 6 groups of 10. Well, I know that 6 groups of 10 or 60 is bigger than having no groups of 10, which would be 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to know that this number right here is going to be the number that's going to be in the middle. And this number is going to be the number that is actually going to be up here, which is the least. It's going to be the least number. So it has the least groups of 10 in this case. So our least number is 4,205. And our middle number was 4,264. So now we have all of our numbers listed in order from least to greatest. Least to greatest. I'm going to go over here on this next screen, and we actually have the same exact numbers that we had on the last screen. Sometimes drawing a big fancy place value chart can take a lot of time. So I just want to know that you can actually do something that's a little bit easier, and you can just make sure as you're writing your numbers that you're lining all of your numbers, or stacking your numbers, as I like to say in class, with each other. You don't really have to draw all of the lines and everything like that. So we have 4,264, 4,502, and 4,205. And I'm doing my best to make sure that all of those place values are lined up with each other. What I mean by that is that the ones places for all of the numbers are right up on top of each other. They're not lined up with the tens place in a different number. All of the ones places are lined up. All of the tens places are lined up. All of the hundreds places are lined up, and all of the thousands places are lined up. And that's what our place value chart here did, is it just made them really nice and lined up. Okay? So now I can go through and do my comparisons again, and I can find out which number is least to greatest. And of course, they're the same numbers, so it's the exact same order. Another tool that we learned that we can use in order to figure out number order is we can use a number line. And you can see this number line is numbered by hundreds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my numbers that I have listed up here, and you can see I actually have 4 different numbers listed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot them down here onto the number line, and it's going to help me know which numbers are larger and which numbers are smaller. We know that a number line, as we move this direction, the numbers get smaller. As we go this way, the numbers get bigger. So let's take a look. We have 264. So that would be approximately right here. We have 264. Let me fix that 2 a little bit there. Okay. The next number is 502, so that's going to be like right almost down that line. And we have 502. Okay. We have 205, which is going to be back here. I'm actually going to mark this one down on the bottom part, just so I don't run into my 264. So I'm going to put 205, 205. And we have 1,500, which is way down here at the end. So we have 1,500. Woo! Sorry, that was a little hard to make that 0. So now what I can do is I can look at the number line. I plotted all of my numbers where they go, and I can really clearly see from least to greatest if I go this way, or if I want greatest to least going this way. So in this case, we're looking for our greatest number to be listed first. Okay, so in this case, we're going from greatest to least. So I am going to go down on the end of the number line that has the bigger numbers, and I know that 1,500 is the one that is farthest over to the right, which makes it the greatest. So I'm just going to write that down, 1,500 as my largest. And then to get continually smaller, all I have to do is follow this direction, going towards the left on my number line. Of course, my first number that I pop into then is 502. So that is my next smallest number, 502. Okay, traveling down the number line, the next one I run into is 264. So 264 is my next smallest number. My least smallest number, my last one that I encounter as I travel down the number line, is 205. One of the things that I want to also remind you of is to constantly be looking for what is being asked of you. One of the biggest mistakes when ordering numbers is just not following directions, making sure that you're going from greatest to least in this case. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but when we were doing our other problem, we were actually asked to go from least to greatest. So we have to just make sure and keep focused on what our job is supposed to be.